Hi friends, I'm Souvik Basu and welcome to our very first episode of How to Start Freelancing. In this episode, we are going to talk about the very basic question about freelancing, that is it even worth being a freelancer? Especially if you are already in a good, well paid, stable day job, would you really consider jumping from such a job into freelancing? Or let's say, even if you are just starting your career and you want to choose between freelancing and a day job, is it worth getting into freelancing or not? So let's look at each of these cases. We'll evaluate both the scenario with examples on certain factors and evaluate which one works better for you. So the very first thing that comes to our mind about freelancing is probably insecurity of a job environment, right? Like when you are on a day job, the best thing about that is a monthly paycheck. At the end of every month or bi-weekly, you are going to get your salary. And whether, let's say, the company is not doing that great, or even if your product or team is not that well aligned, you are at least assured of a periodic paycheck, which is a very big factor, especially if you have a family or dependents, then definitely you would want that kind of a job security. Whereas when you look at freelancing, your contracts might be somewhere ranging between 3 months or 6 months, or if you're lucky, if it might be a long-term project like a year or even more. But generally, getting long-term projects, it takes time. So you would most probably be starting off with a very short duration of projects. So which means that every 3 months probably we'll have to keep searching for new contracts or work. And or not all of those contracts might be paying the same amount. So sometimes you might be getting more work with good pay, or sometimes you might be getting pay at a very low scale. So there isn't really that kind of a stability here on the freelancing side that you will have in a day job. But when we talk about job security, there is one factor to be considered here. Uh, it is actually a little bit of a false sense of security when you are in a day job, given today's volatile market. Like we always hear about news where a big company just lays off thousands of employees from one location. And so today you have a good stable job, and tomorrow you might just be out of it. And to add to that factor, there is something called as a comfort zone which actually works against you. Let me explain you how. So I have been doing freelancing for about 6 years. Before that, about for 12, 13 years, I was working in day jobs. I worked with few companies. And one thing that I realized was that when I'm working with a company, especially if I'm working for a long time in the same company, let's say if it's with the same team, same clients, same technology, I kind of start getting a little comfortable with my job position because the tech stack is I'm so much used to it that I don't really have to keep updating my skills. I just know every issue in and out. I just know how to fix things. I just know how to roll out features quickly. So my skill development kind of takes a little bit of a backseat in that. I don't really spend enough time into upskilling myself. In fact, the company has to sometimes push me into attending conferences and meetups. And whereas if I'm a freelancer, because my tenure of a contract is so low, I always have to keep upskilling myself because there is a lot of competition also in the market. It's not that if I am just sitting around, I just get a project just like that. I have to compete against so many thousands of other freelancers to grab a project. So I always have to make sure that my skills are up to date, and I'm always available to work on the technology that my client wants. It's always possible that I master in one technology, but my client's needs are on some other technologies. So I also have to have a breadth-wise knowledge of technology as well as the depth of a few of those. So for that, I'll have to always make sure that I keep my knowledge updated. I read online resources like blogs and video tutorials. I attend conferences. I attend meetups. and I read books. So with a lot of these resources, I always have to keep my skills up to the mark. Now, how this helps is that in a job environment, let's say today you have a job and tomorrow the company just kicks you out, because you have been so comfortable, tomorrow you just don't know what to do, because it will take you time to ramp up on all the things that you have missed out. But being a freelancer, you are always on your toes, and it doesn't matter. Like tomorrow, you ask me for an interview, tomorrow, and I'm ready for it. So that's something you can say that, okay, that sense of security that you have in a job in today's market, especially, it's a little bit of a false sense of security. Whereas a regular pay, that's definitely something which is for in a day job. Like you always have the periodic payment, the paychecks coming in. Now, the next one is about your finances, which is one of the important factors that a lot of people consider when they want to choose between a day job and freelancing. Now, it really depends upon you how you negotiate your contracts and all. But in general, let's say if you have a job which pays you, for instance, $1,000 per month, and as against that, if as a freelancer you are making $1,000 every month, so the same pay that you're getting in both the cases, this although it looks similar, but they vary a lot depending upon, like when you look at how much money you are taking home, there's a big difference. Let's probably look at it through this example itself. When you are earning $1,000 per month, now again this is depending upon, like, from country to country. I can't really speak about all the countries, but like I have stayed in India and Canada, and based on this experience I can say that a lot of these countries, they have higher taxation brackets for individuals as against those who are self-employed or corporations, which means, especially like when I was in India and working as a salaried employee, I used to pay somewhere around 30-35% of my income as taxes. Definitely, as a salaried employee, I do get certain tax benefits, like if I do certain investments or my medical bills, my any kind of travel, those kind of things kind of get deducted from my taxes. But overall, your tax bracket might be somewhere between 20 to 30%, depending upon your overall income. And in fact, if your income is higher, you might actually fall under higher tax brackets. Whereas if you're working as a freelancer, you would most probably be working as either a proprietor or as incorporated, which means you would have incorporated a company and then you're working as an employee of that company. Now, how that helps you is that most of the governments would actually allow you to deduct your business expenses from your revenues before you declare your profit. And your taxes would actually be on your profit and not on your revenues. Which means, say I am working as a freelancer, I need an office space. So there is rent to be paid for my office. Let's say even if I'm working from home, I can claim a part of my rent for my office rent. So let's say if I have a 2 bedroom or a 3 bedroom apartment and I'm using one room for my office, which means 1/3 of my space I'm using it for my office, then I can consider that 1/3 of the rent and other house expenses are also calculated for business expenses. So not just rent, you can claim your electricity bills, your internet bills, your mobile bills, your other utilities, then any kind of office furniture expenses, your laptops, your monitors, your desktops, your printers. So any kind of expenses that you have to incur to do your job, those can actually be removed from your taxable income. Then you would actually, let's say you are meeting your clients, you are taking your clients out for a coffee or a meal. You can claim those kind of meal outings for as your business expenses. If you have to go to the client site to work, then even your commute charges, let's say if you have a vehicle, part of that cost of the vehicle, the maintenance of that vehicle, and even the gas that you're filling in, all that can be claimed as your business expenses. If you have to travel internationally to meet a possible client, even that can be claimed as a business expense, even if they are not your actual clients as of now, but there is a probability of business, it's a business expense. Similarly, if you are going to attend any kind of conference or meetups, the ticket to travel, the stay, the actual cost of those conference tickets, they all come under business expenses. So when you add up all these things, they actually are a considerable amount, and they take away a big chunk from your overall revenue. And then you actually pay tax only on the profit side. And not just that, there are certain techniques like, let's say if you don't draw the entire money out of your corporate bank account from your personal bank account, let's say if you keep the money in the corporate account itself, then you actually end up paying tax on the corporate earnings and not as your personal tax. And most of the governments, again, depending case to case, a lot of these companies, they would actually be allowing lesser tax brackets for corporations as against individuals, which means again you end up paying a lot lesser tax when you are keeping the money in the corporate's bank account. There are other techniques that your CA or CPA can help you find out, and these are all legitimate ways. These are not any kind of loopholes that we are trying to find out, but all governments, they do allow you to have your business expenses considered while paying taxes. So you actually end up paying a lot lesser tax. Also, when you look at the actual amounts, like in this example, we just considered like, $1,000 of monthly paycheck versus $1,000 that you're earning in a freelance work. But generally, that is not really the case. To tell you a secret, like in any market, if your salary is $1,000 per month, as a freelancer, you can actually go for 1,200 or 1,300 or maybe even more based upon how much you actually negotiate your rates with your client. So generally your rates would be a little bit or far higher than somebody than a salaried employee. Why the company does it so is because they are saying, okay, we give you a stable job, you're for a long time from now you're going to keep your job, so we'll pay you a little less. They don't say a little less, but when you compare it with a freelancing contract job, it's a little less. Whereas a freelancing job is mostly a company would contact you when they want some kind of an expertise that they don't have in-house, or sometimes they don't really have a long-term work for. They have just a work for the next 6 months, like they just want to create a tool, or they want to fix up some things, or they have an immediate requirement for which they don't really have in-house talent. That is when they need a freelancer, and for that the company is willing to pay a little more than what they would be paying for a salaried employee. Also because for a salaried employee, the company has to spend a little bit more from their side. Like they have to give some kind of, PA for any kind of retirement benefits, any kind of insurance for their employees, or they even have to give more leaves and all. So which they don't have to do in case of a freelancer. So they can afford to pay the freelancers a little more. So when you look at it, you would actually be making far more as a freelancer than you would be making as a stable, day job employee. Now, considering the next part is the freedom of time and the freedom of space, or say location. How the freedom of time? So one thing is depending. Now this totally depends upon case to case. Freelancing can be a remote work from home, or it can be a work from on the client side also. Mostly if you are working remote, now again, when you are working remote, the possibilities are that you and your client, they are in different time zones. So a lot of time your clients does allow you to have a comfortable time of work. Like you don't really have to work on the client time zone, but you can choose to work at your time zone. But depending upon the case, again, like you might actually be required to work when the rest of the team from the client side is up. uh, there is another factor here. As a day job employee, you might actually have to work 8 hours a day, which is like 40 hours a week. Whereas as a freelancer, you can choose to not work as a 40 hours employee, but to work only for 20 hours. Maybe the remaining 20 hours you just want to take a rest, or you want to upskill yourself, or you want to spend time with your family, or do whatever you want, but you just want to work part time. That is totally possible when you are working as a freelancer. Whereas it's not really that possible when you are working as a full day, like a day job employee. Then the next factor in this is about the location. So again, let's say if you are working as a remote employee, and if you are available to the client on the time that you have decided on, then your location doesn't really matter much to the client, as long as you have good internet connectivity and you are doing your job well. You can work from anywhere in the world that you want to. So you can even think of traveling the world while you're working. And believe me, a lot of people have actually done that. I have also tried it to some extent, or a lot extent. So, and that's fun, really. In fact, if you want, you can even take your laptop to the beach and work. So it does definitely have that advantage of location that you can work with if you are working as a remote employee. If you have to go to the client location, then yeah, definitely not that much of a flexibility there. There is one thing good though about a day job, which is about the leaves. Like, a lot of companies, they offer 3 to 4 weeks of paid leaves. Whereas as a freelancer, every day I don't work, I don't get paid for it. Even the public holidays, it's like a mandatory off for the entire company, and I have to take holiday and I don't get paid for it. Whereas as a employee, I can always get paid for my vacations. Even when I'm not well and I'm taking sick leaves, or if I have to attend to a conference, the company pays for the conference tickets as well as it gives me leaves. So there are a lot of these kind of advantages that you get in a day job that you don't get in a freelance work. Again, there is one more subtle factor, which is an advantage in a day job, which is like when you're working with a company, the company, especially if you're working with big brands, your profile does definitely get some kind of label of that company, right? Like I've been working with few good companies, and to be honest, I got a lot of freelance work because I was working with those companies before. Like, the name of those companies in my resume, that definitely helped me get my freelance work. So generally what happens is, even if you're working with a good company as a freelancer, you might not really have a long-term contract with them, which doesn't really count much. But let's say if you have worked with a company for 4 to 5 years as an employee, that does definitely count well. There will be people who will be recommending your job. And then apart from this, there are other subtle factors, like, as a freelancer, a lot of times, especially as a remote employee, you have to work alone at home. You miss that office culture. Like, you don't really get to meet your team on a daily basis in office. You don't get those coffee machine time to chit chat with others and socialize and participate in company events much, which are a little bit of a factor. But again, if you are a freelancer working at a client site, like my current work that I'm doing, it's a fantastic company, and I am invited in most of the company events, and I have an amazing set of co-workers whom I socialize a lot, and we used to have chit chats around the coffee table, like, the vending machine and everything. So yeah, so it really depends upon what kind of client you get, whether you're working remotely or on client side. Like, yeah, I'm currently working on the client side, which is working in favor of me in this regard. So these are pretty much the factors that you can consider between whether to look for a day job versus whether to look for freelancing. Don't go for any other factors other than this, then it will be a kind of over analysis. So yeah, let me know how you liked this discussion. If there are any other factors that you had considered that worked for or against you in freelancing, definitely mention it to me in comment section so that we can discuss those as well. And in our next episode, let's take a look at, let's say, if you already have a stable job, what are the ways in which you can get into freelancing? Like, do you just leave it and jump onto freelancing, or are there safer ways in which, you can take your time, test the waters, and then get onto freelancing? So, till then, take care and goodbye.